The battlefield was covered in smoke and fire. The air was thick with the scent of burning metal and the cries of the wounded. Commander Leon Voss moved through the wreckage of the fallen HFY fortress, his pulse steady despite the destruction around him. His armor was scratched, his face smeared with dirt and sweat, but his eyes burned with determination. For years, humans had fought against the HFY dominion, a powerful alien empire that ruled with an iron grip. The HFY saw humans as weak, unworthy of standing among the great races of the galaxy. But today, Leon had proven them wrong. Today, the mighty Lord Vrach had fallen. Leon stepped over the bodies of defeated HFY warriors, his boots crunching against shattered weapons and debris. The fortress, once a symbol of HFY power, now lay in ruins. His soldiers moved cautiously, securing the area. Some checked for survivors, others stood guard, watching the dark corridors of the fortress for any last resistance. "Commander," a soldier called out, approaching him. "We've taken control of the stronghold. The HFY forces have either surrendered or fled." Leon nodded, taking in the news. The battle had been long and brutal, but victory was finally theirs. "Search the fortress," Leon ordered. "Secure anything valuable, and make sure no enemy escapes." As the soldiers spread out, Leon moved deeper into the fortress, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma sword. He knew the HFY were not the type to give up easily. Even in defeat, they held on to their pride. He entered what seemed to be the main chamber. The walls were carved with strange symbols, the glow of alien technology flickering as the power failed. At the center of the room lay the body of Lord Vrach, the defeated HFY noble. His armor was cracked, his forearms limp, his sharp fangs bared in death. Leon exhaled. The warlord had been a powerful enemy, a warrior who believed humans were beneath him. Now he was nothing more than another casualty of war. A sound caught Leon's attention. A door at the back of the chamber hissed open, revealing two figures. They stepped forward, their posture tense, their eyes locked onto him. Two alien women. Leon's hand tightened around his sword, ready for another fight, but they did not attack. Instead, they stood there, their expressions unreadable. One of them, taller and more muscular, had dark blue skin and silver markings that glowed faintly. Her piercing yellow eyes burned with defiance. She wore armor similar to the fallen nobles, a warrior's attire. The other was slender, her pale violet skin smooth, her long black hair flowing down her back. Her expression was calm, almost unreadable. Leon recognized them immediately. Zara and Thelina, the wives of Lord Vrach. His fingers twitched on his sword hilt. He had heard of them before. Zara was known as a fierce warrior, trained in the ways of combat. Thelina was said to be intelligent and strategic, often advising her husband in matters of war. Leon was not sure why they were here. Were they seeking revenge or surrender? Zara was the first to speak. "You are the human who killed my husband." Her voice was sharp, accusing. She took a step forward, her hands curling into fists. "Do you intend to kill us too?" Leon remained still, his gaze steady. "I don't kill those who surrender." Thelina tilted her head, studying him. "Surrender?" she echoed. "You misunderstand. We are not here to beg for mercy." Leon frowned. He had seen how HFY nobles treated their wives. They were possessions, trophies of power. But these two stood before him as if they had made their own choices. Zara's expression hardened. According to HFY law, when a noble is defeated in battle, his victor has the right to claim his household. That means us. Leon stiffened. He had heard of this law before, but he had never thought he would be in such a situation. He looked between them, searching for any signs of fear or deception. But they were both calm, watching him closely. Thelina took a step forward, her voice quiet but firm. "We are yours now, whether you want us or not." Leon exhaled slowly. He had won many battles, faced many dangers, but standing before these two women, bound by the traditions of their people, he realized this was a battle of a different kind, and it was far from over. Leon Voss stared at the two alien women standing before him. The battlefield outside was still settling, but here, inside the ruined fortress, an entirely different kind of conflict was beginning. "You are mine now," Leon repeated, his voice carrying disbelief. He had fought many battles, but this was unexpected. Zara, the taller and more muscular one, crossed her arms, her yellow eyes burning with defiance. "Yes, by Xirac law, you are now the master of this household. That means we belong to you, just as we once belonged to Vrachs." Her tone was filled with resistance, as if she hated every word she spoke. Thelina, the more composed of the two, tilted her head slightly, watching Leon carefully. "Of course, you may refuse," she said, her voice calm and calculating. "But that would mean dishonor, both for us and for you. And I believe you humans have honor, do you not?" Leon exhaled slowly, glancing at the fallen body of Lord Vrach. The warlord had ruled through fear, treating everything and everyone as possessions. That was not Leon's way. "I don't claim people like trophies," Leon said firmly. "I'm not Vrach." Zara smirked, though there was no humor in her expression. "Then what will you do? Let us go." "That would be a mistake." Leon raised an eyebrow. "Why?" Thelina stepped forward. "If you release us, the other Xirac nobles will see us as weak, unworthy of respect. They will hunt us down, either to claim us for themselves or to erase the shame of our husband's defeat." Leon clenched his jaw. He had no love for Xirac traditions, but he understood power. If he let them go, he might as well be signing their death warrants. "You're saying your own people would kill you?" Leon asked, his voice quieter now. Zara scoffed. "Kill? No, but they would ensure we never had the chance to choose our own fate." Leon frowned, looking between the two. It was clear that despite their words, they were not asking to be treated as property. They were asking for something else. "You don't want me as a master," he said slowly. "You want me as a shield." Thelina's lips curled into a small smile. "You are quick to understand." Leon ran a hand through his short, dust-covered hair. He had just won a war, but now he found himself in a political game. If he refused them, they would be doomed. If he accepted them, he would be making enemies of other Xirac nobles who still had power. And yet, "Fine," he said at last. "But understand this, I don't own you. You are free to go whenever you want. I won't stop you." Zara raised an eyebrow. "Then we will go nowhere," she said simply. Leon narrowed his eyes. "What's your game?" Thelina chuckled softly. "No game. You are now the strongest warrior in this region. Staying with you ensures our survival. And perhaps if we prove ourselves useful, you will come to see us as something more than a burden." Leon studied them for a long moment. Their fate had changed the moment Vrach fell. They had been warriors, then prizes, and now, in a strange way, they were seeking a new path. "Then let's get one thing clear," Leon said finally. "I don't need servants. If you stay, you fight. You contribute. You earn your place." Zara's smirk returned. "I was trained as a warrior since birth. I don't need your permission to fight." Thelina nodded. "And I have spent years advising commanders in war. If you are wise, you will make use of that knowledge." Leon sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "This is not what I expected when I stepped into this fortress." Thelina smiled slightly. "Life rarely follows expectation, Commander." Leon shook his head but gestured for them to follow. "Come on, the soldiers will want to know what's happening." As they stepped outside, the human troops stared in confusion. Some whispered among themselves, surprised to see the two Xirac women walking beside their commander. But Leon ignored them. He had already won the battle. Now he had to deal with whatever came next. Leon Voss stepped out of the ruined fortress with Zera and Thelina following closely behind. The battlefield was still a mess. Broken weapons, fallen warriors, and scattered pieces of alien technology lay everywhere. His soldiers, victorious but exhausted, were gathering the wounded and securing the area. As soon as Leon appeared with the two alien women, the murmurs began. His men had fought hard to take down Lord Vrach. Now, seeing his wives walking beside their commander raised questions that needed answers. Sergeant Kieran, one of Leon's most trusted officers, approached him. His dark eyes flickered between Zera and Thelina before settling on Leon. "Sir, is there a reason why the enemy's wives are standing next to you?" Leon folded his arms. "According to Xyrak law, they belong to the victor of this battle." Kieran's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're saying they're yours now?" Leon sighed. "Not in the way you're thinking." He glanced at Zera and Thelina before addressing his soldiers. These two had no choice in being part of Vrach's rule. They're warriors in their own right, and they know more about the Xyrak than any of us. If they stay with us, they fight beside us. Not as prisoners, not as property, but as allies. The men exchanged glances. Some looked uncertain, while others nodded in understanding. "Are they willing?" Kieran asked, looking at the two alien women. Zera stepped forward, her arms crossed over her chest. "I do not follow weak men," she said firmly. "If your commander was not strong, I would have already cut him down." Some of the soldiers chuckled at her boldness. Others shifted uneasily, not yet sure how to react. Thelina, standing beside her, was calmer. "We have chosen this path. If you have doubts, let us prove our worth." Leon looked at his men. "They will fight alongside us," he said. "That is final." There was a moment of silence before Kieran gave a sharp nod. "Understood, Commander." The tension eased, and the soldiers returned to their duties. Leon exhaled, knowing that this was only the beginning of the challenges to come. Nightfall and the first test. Later that evening, the army camp was set up outside the fortress. Fires flickered in the darkness, casting shadows over the gathered soldiers. Leon sat at a wooden table in the command tent, going over maps and reports. That Xyrak forces had scattered, but that didn't mean they wouldn't regroup. He needed to be ready for anything. Zera and Thelina entered the tent. "You seem troubled," Thelina observed, standing near the table. Leon rubbed his temples. "This war isn't over yet. Vrach is dead, but there are others who will want revenge." Zera smirked. "Let them come. I would rather face a worthy opponent than waste time waiting." Leon shook his head. "You really love battle, don't you?" Zera's eyes glowed in the dim light. "It is what I was raised for." Thelina, as always, was more thoughtful. "The real battle now is political. The Xyrak nobility will see you as a threat. They will come for you in ways you do not expect." Leon sighed. "That's what worries me." Suddenly, a commotion broke out outside. Shouting, clashing metal. Leon jumped to his feet, grabbing his plasma sword. Zera and Thelina followed him as they rushed out of the tent. A group of masked figures had entered the camp, attacking the soldiers. They moved fast, their weapons cutting through the air with deadly precision. Assassins. Leon's instincts took over. He charged forward, cutting down the nearest attacker with a clean strike. Zera roared, grabbing a fallen sword and launching herself into battle. Her movements were swift and brutal, her strength undeniable. Thelina, instead of rushing in, observed the attackers. Then, with precise timing, she pulled a dagger from her belt and threw it. The blade struck one assassin in the throat, dropping him instantly. The battle was brief. The assassins were skilled, but they had underestimated their opponents. Within minutes, the last of them fell. Leon wiped his blade clean, breathing heavily. He looked around, counting the casualties. Several of his men had been wounded, but most were still standing. Zera approached him. Blood splattered across her armor. That was no ordinary attack, she said. They knew exactly where to strike. Felina nodded. Someone sent them. Someone powerful. Leon tightened his grip on his sword. This wasn't just about winning a war anymore. There were bigger forces at play. He turned to Zara and Felina. It looks like we have a common enemy. Zara grinned. Then let's hunt them down. Leon nodded. He had accepted these two as allies. Now they would face whatever came next, together. The night was still heavy with tension after the assassin attack. The air smelled of burnt cloth and blood, the dying embers of the campfires casting flickering shadows over the soldiers. Some men sat in silence, tending to their wounds, while others kept watch with their weapons ready. No one spoke much, but everyone knew what the attack meant. This war was far from over. Leon Voss stood at the edge of the camp, his arms crossed as he stared into the dark wilderness beyond. His mind raced with thoughts. Assassins meant someone had sent them. Someone powerful enough to know where they were and bold enough to try to kill him in his own camp. Beside him, Zara leaned against a wooden post, wiping blood from her sword. She seemed almost pleased by the fight. That was a good battle, she said, her yellow eyes glinting in the firelight. Pity they were too weak to be a real challenge. Leon glanced at her, unimpressed. They nearly killed some of my men. Zara shrugged. Then your men should fight better. Leon sighed. He was beginning to understand that Zara's way of thinking was deeply tied to her warrior upbringing. Strength was everything to her. Felina, who had been quiet so far, finally spoke. This attack was not random, she said, her voice calm but serious. It was precise. They came directly for you, Commander. Leon nodded. I know. Someone wants me dead. Felina stepped closer. It is likely one of the remaining Iraq nobles. Lord Vrach's death left a power vacuum. If they believe you are a threat, they will not stop with assassins. Leon clenched his jaw. He had been ready for battles, but now he had to fight a different kind of war, one of strategy, politics, and deception. Zara straightened. Then we strike first. Find out who sent them and kill them before they try again. Leon smirked slightly. You make it sound so simple. Zara grinned. It is simple. You just have to be strong enough to do it. Leon turned to Felina. Do you have any idea who might be behind this? Felina thought for a moment. Vrach had many allies, but there is one who stands out. Lord Malgren. He was always ambitious. With Vrach dead, he might see this as his chance to rise. And if he sees you as an obstacle, he will try to remove you. Leon nodded. Then we go after Malgren. Zara smirked, pleased. Finally, a good plan. Leon turned back toward the camp. Get some rest. We move at dawn. The hunt begins. As the sun rose, Leon and his squad prepared to leave. He took only his best warriors with him, men he trusted. Zara and Felina rode alongside him on their hover bikes, their expressions focused. The journey took them deep into Scyra-controlled territory, where Lord Malgren's stronghold stood. It was not as large as Vrach's fortress, but it was heavily guarded. Leon and his team hid in the rocky cliffs nearby, studying the defenses. There are too many guards for a direct assault, Kieran whispered. Leon nodded. Then we go in quietly. Felina observed the guards. They change shifts every 2 hours. If we move during the transition, we can slip inside undetected. Leon smirked. I like the way you think. Zara stretched her arms, or we could just break through the front door. Leon rolled his eyes. We'll go with Felina's plan. Zara sighed. Fine, but if things go wrong, I'm fighting my way out. Breaking in. As planned, they'd moved during the shift change. Leon, Zara, Felina, and a small group of soldiers slipped past the distracted guards and into the fortress. The inside was dark and cold, the walls lined with banners of Malgren's house. They moved silently, avoiding patrols. Felina led the way, using her knowledge of Vrach fortresses to find the fastest path. Finally, they'd reached Malgren's chamber. The doors were large and heavily guarded. Leon whispered to Zera, "This is your part." Zera grinned. With the silent precision of a trained warrior, she moved. In seconds, the guards lay unconscious, taken down before they could sound an alarm. Leon pushed open the doors. Inside, Lord Malgren sat on his throne, sipping dark Syrah wine. He looked up, unfazed. "Ah," he said, smiling. "I was expecting you." Leon stepped forward, gripping his sword. "Then you know why I'm here." Malgren chuckled. "Of course. You want to know if I sent those assassins." Leon's eyes narrowed. "Did you?" Malgren tilted his head. "If I did, you would already be dead." Leon frowned. Was Malgren lying, or was there someone else behind this attack? Before he could respond, Malgren snapped his fingers. The walls suddenly came to life with hidden panels sliding open. Dozens of heavily armed guards poured into the room. Leon cursed under his breath. Malgren leaned back in his chair. "I do admire your bravery, human. But you made a mistake coming here." Zera cracked her knuckles. "Finally, some fun." Leon raised his sword. "Then let's finish this." The battle had begun. Leon Voss raised his plasma sword just in time to block an incoming strike from one of Malgren's guards. Sparks flew as metal clashed against energy, and Leon pushed back, driving his enemy away with a powerful kick. Zera, standing beside him, grinned as she launched herself into battle. She moved like a blur, her twin blades cutting down opponents with ruthless efficiency. Every movement was precise, every attack filled with strength. Felina, however, fought differently. While she was not as physically strong as Zera, she was fast and strategic. She weaved between enemies, striking pressure points, and using the enemy's strength against them. When a guard lunged at her, she sidestepped and twisted his arm, sending him crashing to the ground. Leon focused on Malgren, who remained seated on his throne, watching the fight with amusement. The alien noble sipped his wine, unconcerned by the battle happening before him. "You brought too few men, Commander," Malgren said, smirking. "Did you really think you could defeat me this easily?" Leon dodged another attack and countered with a quick slash, taking down another guard. "If I thought this would be easy, I wouldn't have come at all." Zera cut through another enemy and turned to Leon. "Enough talk. Let's take him down." Leon nodded and charged toward Malgren, but just as he reached the throne, Malgren raised a hand. "Stop," Malgren said. To Leon's surprise, the remaining guards halted their attacks and stepped back. The sudden silence was almost eerie. Malgren stood, setting his wineglass aside. "You are strong, human. I can see why Vrachs fell to you." Leon kept his sword raised. "You tried to have me killed, and now you're complimenting me." Malgren chuckled. "No, I did not send the assassins." Leon narrowed his eyes. "Then who did?" Malgren sighed. "Another noble, one who sees both of us as threats. You and I may be enemies, but we have a common foe." Leon didn't lower his sword. "And why should I believe you?" Malgren smirked. "Because if I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have stopped my men." Leon considered this. Malgren had the upper hand, yet he had called off the attack. That meant he needed something from Leon. Zera stepped forward, her arms crossed. "If you're not our enemy, then why did you lure us here?" Malgren turned to her. "I wanted to see the human warrior for myself, to understand why he is different." Felina, who had been silent, finally spoke. "And now that you've seen him." Malgren studied Leon for a moment before speaking. "I propose an alliance." Leon frowned. "An alliance?" Malgren nodded. "Yes, the noble who sent the assassins will not stop until you are dead, and if he succeeds, I will be his next target. But together, we can eliminate him before he eliminates us." Leon exchanged glances with Zera and Felina. This was unexpected. "Who is this noble?" Leon asked. Malgren's expression darkened. "Lord Vrach. He controls one of the largest HFY armies. He seeks to reclaim what Vrach's lost, and if he does, he will wage war against humans once more." Leon took a deep breath. If what Malgren was saying was true, then Vrach was the real threat. "You expect me to trust you?" Leon asked. Malgren chuckled. "I expect you to be smart. You are a warrior, not a fool. And a true warrior knows when to join forces for a greater victory." Leon was silent for a moment. He had fought against the HFY for years. Trusting one of them went against everything he had known. But war was not just about fighting. It was about strategy. Finally, Leon lowered his sword. "Fine. We work together. But if you betray me..." Malgren raised a hand. "I wouldn't dare. Betrayal is a coward's game." Zara smirked. "Then let's make sure Vrach never plays that game again." Thelina nodded. "We should move quickly. If Vrach learns of this, he will strike first." Malgren grinned. "Then let's prepare for war." Leon exhaled. This battle was far from over, but now he had an unlikely ally. And together, they would bring down the true enemy. Leon Voss stood at the edge of Malgren's war chamber, his arms crossed as he listened carefully. Around him, maps and holographic projections flickered, showing the battlefield that awaited them. The HFY noble, Malgren, leaned against the large table, pointing to a key location on the map. "Lord Vrach has already started gathering his forces here," Malgren explained. "If we don't act quickly, he will strike first." Leon studied the map. Vrach's forces were positioned in a mountain valley, an area that would be difficult to attack directly. A traditional frontal assault would be a disaster. He glanced at Zara and Thelina, who stood beside him. "We need a smarter approach," Leon said. "We can't match Vrach in numbers, but we can outmaneuver him." Thelina nodded. "If we force him into a fight on our terms, we have a chance." Zara smirked. "Good. I prefer a battle where we make the rules." Malgren sighed. "Humans really are unpredictable. But very well. What is your plan?" Leon pointed to a section of the map, a narrow canyon leading to Vrach's base. "We block this passage. He'll be forced to take another route, one that leaves him vulnerable." Malgren raised an eyebrow. "And then?" Leon's eyes gleamed. "We strike from both sides, cutting off his escape. We take down his command first, forcing the rest of his forces to scatter." Zara nodded approvingly. "A warrior's strategy. Bold and effective." Malgren chuckled. "You truly think like a HFY human." Leon smirked. "No, I think like a soldier who knows how to win." The battle begins. Before dawn, Leon and his forces moved into position. Malgren's warriors, though once enemies, now stood beside human soldiers. The tension between the two groups was clear, but there was a common goal now: defeating Vrach. As the sun rose, the first stage of the plan began. Leon's men used explosives to trigger a controlled landslide in the canyon, blocking Vrach's main path. Just as expected, Vrach's forces were forced to take the alternative route. But what they didn't know was that Leon, Zara, and Thelina were already waiting for them. As the enemy army moved through the valley, Leon signaled the attack. Explosions erupted along the ridges, sending fire and smoke into the air. Arrows and plasma shots rained down from above as Malgren's forces struck from the rear. Vrach's army was caught in chaos. Zara leaped into battle with a roar, cutting down enemies with fierce precision. Her movements were wild yet controlled, the mark of a true warrior. Thelina stayed behind the main lines, using her strategic mind to direct forces where they were needed most. She sent signals to the human and HFY troops, adjusting their positions to maintain the upper hand. Leon fought at the front, his plasma sword cutting through enemy ranks. He moved like a force of nature, his every strike landing with deadly accuracy. Vrach's forces, though powerful, were losing ground. The duel with Vrach. Leon pushed forward, his eyes searching for the enemy leader. He spotted Vrach near the center of the battlefield, barking orders to his men. Without hesitation, Leon charged. Vrach saw him coming and turned, drawing his massive blade. "Human," he snarled. "You dare challenge me?" Leon smirked. "I dare win." The two warriors clashed, their swords meeting with a thunderous force. Sparks flew as they exchanged blow after blow. Vrach was strong, perhaps the strongest HFY noble Leon had faced. But Leon had something else, speed and strategy. He dodged a heavy strike and countered with a sharp slash across Vrach's side. The noble growled in pain but did not fall. Instead, he swung wildly, his blade carving through the air. Leon ducked, rolling to the side before delivering a powerful strike to Vrach's leg. The alien noble staggered. "This is for the people you tried to kill," Leon said coldly. With one final swing, Leon's sword found its mark. Vrach fell to his knees, gasping. His soldiers, seeing their leader defeated, began to retreat in panic. Zera and Felina rushed to Leon's side. Malgren's forces advanced, securing the battlefield. Vrach coughed, his voice weak. "You are not like the others." Leon stepped back, his sword lowered. "No, I'm not." And with that, the war was over. A new future. As the battlefield fell silent, Malgren approached, studying the fallen Vrach. "You did what many thought impossible, human." Leon sheathed his sword. "The war is done. Now what?" Malgren sighed. "Now the HFY must decide what comes next. But one thing is certain, you have changed everything." Zera smirked. "I think I like this change." Felina nodded. "And I believe this is only the beginning." Leon looked around at the battlefield. Humans and HFY stood together, not as enemies, but as survivors. A new future was ahead, and Leon was ready for whatever came next. The battlefield was quiet now. The sounds of war, clashing swords, the roar of plasma fire, and the cries of the fallen had faded into the wind. The rising sun painted the land in shades of gold and crimson, a reminder that the war was finally over. Leon Voss stood among the wreckage, his sword still in his grip, but his body heavy with exhaustion. Around him, human and HFY soldiers tended to the wounded, collecting weapons and securing the area. For the first time in years, these two races were not fighting against each other, but standing side by side. Zera, her armor splattered with dirt and blood, stretched her arms. "That was a good fight," she said, flashing a sharp grin. Vrach thought he was untouchable, but he was just another warlord with too much pride. Leon smirked, shaking his head. "You sound like you enjoyed this too much." Zera shrugged. "Battle is what I was born for." Felina approached them, her violet eyes scanning the battlefield. Unlike Zera, she was calm, thoughtful. "Victory is ours, but it is only the beginning," she said. "There will be consequences. Vrach's allies will not simply accept this." Leon nodded. "I know. That's why we need to prepare for what comes next." Decisions to be made. Malgren joined them, his expression unreadable. The HFY noble had fought alongside Leon, proving that alliances could be made even between former enemies. He looked at the fallen Vrach and sighed. "This war changed everything," Malgren said. "That HFY nobles will not know what to do next. Some will seek revenge. Others will look for new leaders." Leon studied him. "And what about you? What will you do now?" Malgren chuckled. "I could fight for power, but I have seen enough war. I will return to my lands and ensure my people survive in this new age." He met Leon's gaze. "And you, human, what will you do?" Leon exhaled, running a hand through his dust-covered hair. "I came here as a soldier, but now, I'm not sure what I am anymore." Zera crossed her arms. "You are a warrior, Leon, And warriors don't just walk away after a battle. They build something greater. Felina nodded. You have the respect of both humans and Vrach now. That is not something to take lightly. Leon looked out over the battlefield. He had spent so many years fighting, leading men into war. Now, for the first time, he had the chance to create something different. An unexpected choice. Later that day, as the camp was being packed up, Kieran, Leon's second-in-command, approached him. Commander, the troops are waiting for orders. Are we heading back? Leon hesitated. No. Kieran frowned. No. Leon turned to face his men. The war is over, but our work isn't. The Vrach are in chaos, and if we leave now, things will go back to the way they were. He took a deep breath. I'm staying. Murmurs broke out among the soldiers. Some were surprised. Others nodded in understanding. Kieran stepped closer. Then what do we do? Leon looked at Zara and Felina, who stood beside him. We help build something better. Not just for humans, but for everyone who wants peace. Malgren smirked. You truly are different, human. Zara grinned. If you're staying, then I'm staying. Felina nodded. Me as well. Someone needs to make sure you don't do anything reckless. Leon chuckled. Then it's decided. A future worth fighting for. As the sun set, Leon looked at the horizon. The future was uncertain, full of challenges, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for something greater. A new world, a new alliance, a new future, and he would see it through to the end. The end.